I think the gentleman now recognizes the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Latta, for 5
Thank you,
minutes.
Mr. Chairman, and thanks for our witnesses for being with us today and for holding this really important hearing. I recently met with the Crawford County Sheriff's Department in my district where they demonstrated how they utilize FirstNet to ensure they have reliable communication to respond to emergencies. And as one of the Republicans and one of the early members who was here that when we created the FirstNet program, I must say seeing FirstNet deployed through my district and the nation underscores how this true public-private partnership has been tremendously successful. Sheriff Dykes, if I could start with you. Congress created FirstNet and ensured public safety has a seat at the table when the coverage decisions are made. And let me say, early on when we've had those initial hearings, there was a kind of a disconnect where Washington thought it was going to impose its decisions and how it thought it was going to run, and kind of forgot to talk to the folks at the local and state levels. And fortunately, we saw a real change that came about from that. But could you speak to the uniqueness this network offers for the public safety community when we talk about FirstNet?
Absolutely. First of all, you mentioned it, and I think this is where major county sheriffs becomes the best resource for all of you, and it's what I mentioned earlier in terms of Street View. How are our troops out there on the streets actually interacting and what works the best? And to have our opinions about these things. But when you talk about governance and the way that FirstNet is rolled out, for the first time, law enforcement and those professionals that are using that are part of those groups in terms of the implementation across the country and certainly in our state and locally. So it gives us a voice we haven't had before, but more importantly for all of you, allows you to hear how this affects us, what's going on in the streets, and how we use that technology to better service to the public.
You know, in your testimony, under your FirstNet and infrastructure security, you got some areas in here that are kind of scary because we're talking about, you responded to vandalism, sabotage, targeted acts of terrorism against towers and network modes, and you're talking about wanting to make sure you have the resilience of the system that requires both digital and physical security measures. Could you talk about this? I kind of probably know what you're talking about on the security side. What about on the digital side, on how you protect it?
So it was mentioned, and we just kind of surface touched it, on the digital side related to cybersecurity, having almost DoD type of audit processes for our system. We're talking about critical information, not just to service the public, but also to different assets across the United States, critical infrastructure that we all work to protect. It's almost the 10-year anniversary of what we call December 2nd, but the second largest terrorist attack occurred in San Bernardino County. And in that area, at first when those things happen, you don't know, is that the primary target? What's the purpose? So you start setting out to look at your critical infrastructure, the physical protection, and from a cybersecurity perspective, being able to protect those. But it's really the audits and identifying the vulnerabilities leading up to that, both on the physical side and the technical side. And there's a lot of expertise here at the federal government level. If that could be shared with the locals, it would certainly enhance those security measures.
Excellent.